to strive, to seek, to find, but to not yield. Ulysses by Lord Tennyson. This constant recurring idea of not giving up, of just going forward with the flow, kind of like the water doesn't give up on itself. Sometimes a mountain collapses, but ultimately a rock stays a rock unless a whole nother element kind of comes against it. But the story today is how rocks can become diamonds, and that is by striving, seeking, finding, and not yielding. And more specifically, about how project based thinking can help that. When I say project based thinking, I'm talking about seeing life and its endeavors not as something as a massive whole to be attacked, and not even as something infinitesimally small, almost infinite seconds upon one another, but rather breaking it down as chapters ahead in terms of projects. This is extremely relevant for creative people, and obviously so for people who are filmmakers, because every film itself is a project. But it's also relevant for other art forms as well. So if you're a music artist, you may particularly like to do the album concept, releasing a whole album and working on a batch of 5, 10, 15, 20 songs. Or you might even do a tour, and then you'll be done with that. Or if you're a painter, you might have a series of paintings. You do an exhibition, you do a showing, and then that's that. And there's reasons why this method of working and thinking is especially relevant for us creative people. One is it's a way of making something very quantifiable in terms of that artistic work is not usually quantifiable. It's something well outside of those numerical terms. It's a way of putting that back into some sort of semi quasi numerical sense of, hey, I am focusing on this one project at a time. It's not always different things containing it, because a lot of the time the hardest thing being creative is to fit within limitations, and oftentimes we have to even create our own limitations as well. So having that finite end point, it is a blessing that this world itself is somewhat finite, because if it was an infinite digital virtual never-ending landscape, it's semi-conceivable that we would never get anything done, because the realm of possibilities would be endlessly open, and that would create too much craziness. Just like the great Danish philosopher Soren Kierkegaard says, anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. And that's what we don't want. Except there are many societies, cultures, peoples that, in order to not have anxiety, they live by a kind of totalitarian, rigid, fundamentalist kind of structure that is imposed on them from on top and around. But that removes freedom, it removes the true human spirit, and it removes creativity. But as creative people, we need to be able to reach that level of actuality by imposing certain kinds of limits on ourselves in order for us to move forward, as the nature of this world is that it is a world of limitations, such as certain chemical, physical, biological elements that may not be one to one to one or black and white, but nevertheless there are certain kind of elements out there that are somewhat quantifiable, as opposed to our artistic creative world that is virtually unquantifiable and virtually never ending qualifiably open and awesome. So the first metaphor that I would like to talk about is that of the new day. The new day is this morning, tomorrow, and the one that will come. In fact, the great thing is that we will keep on experiencing the new day, the new dawn, until we are no more. So that can be a relief to us that there is always tomorrow. There's always the new dawn. This is a metaphor that will come up many times in literature, film, poetry. Even that image, whether it's a painting or cinematic shot of a dawn, represents a new beginning. So for us to kind of have in our mind that when things get difficult, there is the new dawn and the new day. And that is also kind of representative in the artwork that we create. Both ways that we can create the new dawn, but in fact, our artwork itself will be the new dawn. We are creating the new horizon, definitely for our own lives, and definitely the artists of today and the new dawn will create the art of tomorrow. The next metaphor I will briefly present to you is one that focuses more specifically on my gender, which is that of the male. We have always encountered throughout history the battle, and just like every dawn is a new chapter, in fact, a battle is a new chapter. The peoples, the cultures, the nations, the groups have always battled throughout all of human history, throughout our 10,000 years of recorded history, throughout all our history, going back to whatever you believe, there's always been the battle. And these battles, most of the time, were not just one off occurrences, but in fact, they went on multiple times until the end of the story. Kind of a personal battle that we face in life to be able to go on with our own life, but to be able to put our art out and to be creative enough and to have the resilience, the fortitude, the courage, the strength, the determination, the willpower to go forward into the horizon against those who may not like us, those who may hate us, those that may wish bad things upon us, and put ourselves out there for even some kind of destruction, whatever that destruction can be. And we know very clearly that artists are prone to destruction, partly because we are sensitive people, and so we feel things that can have a greater effect than it may have for someone who is not open to a creative life and is living a more structured life. Also, because is supposed to be challenging and provocative, and for some people who may react too strongly to the art that is challenging and provocative, they may be angered or may bring about reaction to them that they want to project back with some kind of animosity towards the artist. So for us men, we can think that we are in a constant battle, even for the ladies. Let's extend this to the ladies. We're all in a battle. We're in a battle of life. This is our battle of being creative. Now more than ever, we can't take this as a joke because it is our life. Sure, we are not in the trenches. We're not getting sliced up by kamikaze pilots or samurai swords or being put under the axe and grind of medieval Europe. But nevertheless, we are living in a crazy world, as we know. Do I need to explain? We are in a battle of our minds and souls, and emotions and feelings, and the spirit of ourselves and all of mankind and womankind. We need to do our best to make ourselves and the world a better place. So the battle motif is something that goes on and on. my latest film is a war film, and I chose that because around my life I have felt like I'm fighting this great battle, and I think a lot of people can relate to it. I think the actors can relate to it, the other crew members can relate to it. I think many people can relate to this in life as a metaphor, if not actually having some battles going on in the world at the moment. And this is a metaphor that's going to ring out for all human history because it's how our civilizations were formed and created. Unfortunately, that is the violence that has brought us here, but hopefully we can be elevated. Nevertheless, this metaphor keeps ringing on. And the final metaphor I'd like to share today is that of the chapter. Literature goes back thousands of years, as we know. Holy Scripture, writings of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and others. And the chapter is a defining kind of feature of going from one kind of element of being and discussing to another element of being and discussing, so that things have some kind of relative order. So in life, we find ourselves in chapters. This is my teens chapter, my 20s chapter, my 30s chapter. This is my depressive chapter, my excitable chapter, my party chapter, my contemplative chapter. Examples. I mean, we feel all these emotions, we feel all these things. Chapters can be broken into many ways, but the chapters of a book can also be related to life, that in life we will move on to another chapter, and in the same way our art can reflect the kind of chapter that we feel in life. It doesn't have to be rigid, doesn't have to be numerical. It's not chapter 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Doesn't even matter that we are a certain age or whatever other relatively superficial element of it. The thing is that we are able to look at it, that we have a chapter now and we have future chapters, and the chapters will go until they do not go. And when they do not go, we will not be aware that they are not going, because that will be the end of all of our chapters. Just as when there is no more chapters, there are no more battles to fight, and there's no more dawns, but we'll have a great sunset. A sunset of chapters, days, and battles. But that's when we'll know we've fought our last battle and done our greatest that we could, hopefully speaking. So to share the battles that I'm fighting right now, I'm working on my second feature film. I shot it this year in Thailand and Vietnam. It's a war film. It's tentatively called Cherry Call, about a group of soldiers that go off from the American military and fighting in the Vietnam War, and they have to encounter a lot of craziness, and they find a peace retreat where they get sanctuary with a charismatic young American doctor called Cherry. And things kind of start to unravel and get bizarre and fly out of control in a thriller suspense action kind of way. So I'm super excited that this is a massive chapter of my life, that I'll be releasing this film next year and you'll be able to see this. I'm also working on 3 different music albums that I'm going to release. I'm planning on releasing in the next 3 years. So this will be 3 chapters of my musicality and a whole different, very important part of my own life and creativity. These music albums are tentatively called Rendezvous, Rage, and Revelations. I want to put it out there because I want to see how this develops. I want to keep on putting my life and my story out there over time for myself, if nobody else. So that's to share some ideas that I have on why it's important to face life like a series of projects or with a project mindset. Or if that gives you something to think about, let's keep on moving forward to the next dawn, the next chapter, and the next battle.